Welcome back to the deep dive. Okay, so thanks for sending over the sources for this one. We're diving into a game that, well, kind of changed everything, didn't it? The Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Wild.
Absolutely. Huge impact.
And we've got a really good introduction piece here, a detailed story summary, and then this whole section on interesting facts, kind of behind-the-scenes stuff.
Yeah, looks like a solid overview. So our goal here, I guess, is to unpack all this, figure out why this game felt so different, how they told the story in that massive world.
Right.
And, the effect it had afterwards on, like, the whole industry.
Yeah, because everyone talks about the freedom, right? The physics, how everything just works. And the reviews were just insane, like perfect scores everywhere.
It wasn't just another Zelda game. It was like a fundamental rethink.
Definitely set a new benchmark for open worlds.
No question.
Okay, so let's get into it. Let's unpack this journey through Hyrule. Right off the bat, the sources call it a defining masterpiece. Came out 2017, Switch and Wii U.
Nintendo EPD developed it. Fujibayashi directing, Aonuma producing. The usual, well, the key players for modern Zelda.
And yeah, the first big thing mentioned is how it redefined open world gaming. That's a huge claim. What specifically made it so different, according to the sources?
Well, the main thing seems to be that radical departure from the series' traditional linear structure. That's the key phrase.
Okay, so less A to B to C.
Exactly. Instead of guiding you, it just gives you near total freedom. That's the term they use. Explore this huge world with minimal hand-holding.
Ha! Yeah, minimal hand-holding is one way to put it. I remember just feeling lost, but in a good way. Just kind of set loose.
Right. And the other big piece is the physics-driven gameplay.
Yeah.
Everything interacts. Like fire spreads, metal conducts electricity.
Wind blows your arrows off course.
Exactly. And it's not just for show, right? The sources emphasize this is core to the gameplay, to solving puzzles.
So you're not just walking through a pretty world, you're actually messing with its rules.
Yeah, precisely. It creates this living world that rewards curiosity. That's a great way to put it.
And the world itself is just massive. What did the sources say? 360 square kilometers, packed with stuff.
It's huge.
Yeah.
And the philosophy was basically if you can see it, you can go there.
Which is kind of amazing.
And mechanics like climbing almost anything, plus the paraglider.
Yeah.
Just getting around becomes part of the adventure, part of the discovery.
Okay, so this enormous, dynamic world, incredible freedom. How did they even build that? What did the sources say about the development?
It was a big deal. A bold reinvention, they call it. Took over 4 years, more than 300 people.
Wow.
And Fujibayashi and Aonuma, they were like explicitly trying to break that old Zelda formula, go nonlinear.
I love that detail in the sources about the 2D prototype. They built it in 2D first, just to test the layout.
Yeah, to make sure exploring felt good no matter which way you went. Really smart design, thinking ahead like that.
It really shows how deliberate that open design was.
Definitely. But it wasn't easy, of course. The physics engine was apparently a huge challenge. Lots of optimization needed, especially for the Switch, since it launched with the game.
Ah, right. Launch title pressure.
And they also had to figure out that balance. Extreme freedom, but not so much that you're completely clueless.
Which led to the Great Plateau.
Exactly. That structured intro area kind of teaches you the ropes before opening everything up.
Yeah, like a mini Hyrule. Okay, so the story. How does that even work when you can go anywhere? Older Zeldas were pretty straightforward narratively.
That's a great question, and one the devs clearly thought about a lot. How do you tell a story with total freedom? The answer, based on these sources, it's a narrative told through exploration, fragmented memories, and environmental cues.
So deliberately nonlinear. You piece the past together yourself.
At your own pace, yeah. The sources say this makes exactly. The lore is baked into everything. Old ruins, ancient texts you find, talking to people, even just the landscape tells a story. The different regions, volcanoes, icy mountains, they all have their own history you can sort of feel.
Okay, so the main plot. Link wakes up after 100 years.
Yep, 100-year nap, wakes up, got to defeat Calamity Ganon, this malevolent entity that wrecked Hyrule and corrupted these giant machines, the divine beasts.
And Zelda's been holding Ganon back the whole time, but she's weakening.
Right. So Link's job is basically get strong again, free the divine beasts and the spirits of their champions, find his lost memories, and then go face Ganon.
The Great Plateau gives you that initial setup, right? The old king's spirit explains the basics.
Correct. King Rome gives you the mission brief.
But then, bam, total freedom. You could just run straight to Hyrule Castle.
You absolutely could. Probably wouldn't go well, but the option's there.
Ah. Probably not. And that freedom totally changes how you experience the story, doesn't it?
Completely. Each player's journey is unique because of it. Looking at the characters the sources highlight, Link is the silent protagonist, obviously. A blank slate, they say.
His personality comes from your actions, and amnesia is kind of the whole point, drives you to find out what happened.
Then there's Zelda. She's called the emotional heart of the story. Her struggle with her powers, her destiny. You see it all in the memories.
Yeah, the sources mention her voice acting makes her really relatable. She's not just the goal, she's a person dealing with immense pressure.
Totally. And the champions, Daruk the Goron, Mipha the Zora, Revali the Rito, Urbosa the Gerudo, they're the heroes from 100 years ago.
Piloted the divine beasts.
Right. Each represents a different race, has their own personality, their own kind of tragic backstory you uncover. Freeing their spirits gives Link special powers.
Their signature moves, basically.
Exactly. And Calamity Ganon. Less of a character, more like a force of nature. Primal force of destruction is how the sources put it. Pure chaos.
But the supporting cast really fills out the world. Impa, Prince Sidon.
Riju, the Gerudo chief.
Yeah. They give the different cultures real depth. Those interactions make Hyrule feel lived in.
Super important. The sources also break down the main story arcs. First, the hero's rebirth on the Great Plateau. That's the tutorial. Sets up the conflict.
Then the divine beasts. These are like the main dungeons, kind of, the big quest lines you can follow if you want structure.
Pretty much. Each one involves helping a different race, getting into their corrupted divine beast, like helping Prince Sidon with Varuda.
And you get Mipha's memories, see her connection with Link.
Or helping Yunobo the Goron with Varudania, learning about Daruk.
Yeah.
Then there's the Rito and Revali.
Who's kind of arrogant but skilled.
Right. And the Gerudo with Vana Boris, seeing Urbosa mentoring Zelda.
And inside each beast, it's puzzles and then a boss fight, a Blight Ganon.
And you get a champion ability as a reward. But like you said, the personal story really comes from those recoverable memories. 18 of them, scattered everywhere.
Finding those specific spots, triggering the cutscenes, that's where you really get the emotional core. Zelda's struggles, her relationship with her father, her bond with Link before everything went wrong.
Absolutely crucial. Those moments, like seeing her despair or her courage, they add so much weight.
And the sources also mention side quests add more flavor, building Terrytown.
Dealing with the Yiga clan, those assassins always popping up.
Yeah, or just chatting with people in Kakariko or Hatino. It makes the world feel incredibly dense.
And it all leads towards that final showdown in Hyrule Castle. Smart design choice, too, that freeing the divine beasts actually weakens Ganon in the end.
Gives you a real tangible benefit for doing those quests.
Exactly, and the ending changes slightly depending on how many memories you found.
Yeah, nice touch connecting your exploration back to the story's resolution. Focuses on Zelda's growth, her partnership with Link.
It really digs into themes like duty, resilience, finding strength through Link's quiet actions and Zelda's whole arc.
It's just, yeah, a masterclass in telling a story through the environment, through letting the player discover it.
Using the world itself as the main narrative tool alongside those memory fragments, it works incredibly well.
Okay, let's circle back to the gameplay mechanics. Beyond the freedom in physics, what else did the sources highlight as being, revolutionary?
The Sheikah Slate is huge, obviously. Its powers, magnesis, cryonis, stasis, bombs. They aren't just keys for specific locks. They're versatile tools.
Right. They encourage creative problem solving, as the sources put it. They interact with the physics in ways that designers maybe didn't even predict.
That's the emergent gameplay idea. Using magnesis to swing a metal box like a weapon, or freezing an enemy with stasis.
Or freezing a boulder and whacking it to launch it across a canyon. Yeah. And the environment reacting. Rain making climbing slippery, lightning hitting your metal gear.
Constantly forces you to adapt. You can't just rely on one strategy.
And the shrines. 120 of them. Little self-contained challenges.
Yeah, puzzles, combat tests, sometimes just observation. They give you spirit orbs for more health or stamina. They provide that bit of structure and reward within the huge open world.
Plus things like cooking for buffs adds a bit of a survival feel. Oh, and the sources mentioned weapon durability. That was controversial.
Yeah, divisive is the word used. Some people hated that weapons broke constantly.
I can see why.
But the insight from the sources is that it was intended to push you, force you to experiment, use different weapons, scavenge, engage with the world's resources instead of just sticking with one favorite sword.
Makes sense. Encourages adaptability. like the rest of the game.
Exactly. It's a deliberate design choice tied into that core loop.
And beyond shrines, the map is just littered with secrets. Korok seeds, 900 of them.
900, yeah. Plus, hidden quests, unique characters. And it all feeds back into that systemic design. The physics, the environment, your tools, they combine to create those moments you see online.
Like using a guardian beam to chop down a tree, or building flying machines with stasis before Tears of the Kingdom made it official.
Right, that's the emergent stuff. The world feels consistently surprising because its systems are so robust.
The sources had some fun trivia too. Easter eggs.
Yeah, little nods to past games, the Island Lobster shirt from Wind Waker, place names from the original NES Zelda.
Oh, cool. And fan theories. People always love those.
Oh, yeah. Speculation about where it fits in the Zelda timeline, always a hot topic. Or connecting Zelda's powers back to the goddess Hylia from Skyward Sword.
The community really ran with this game. Speedrunners, modders.
Totally. Pushing the physics engine to its absolute limits, creating new ways to play.
Did the sources touch on any controversies? Besides weapon durability.
Yeah, briefly. The initial discussion about the lack of traditional big dungeons.
Yeah.
You know, the multi-floor themed ones from older games.
Right. The divine beasts were different, more like big puzzle boxes.
Exactly. And the shrines offered smaller challenges instead. Also some early frame rate issues on Switch, but those got patched.
Standard launch stuff, mostly. And then there was DLC.
Right, significant DLC. The Master Trials added a tough new challenge mode, and the Champion's Ballad expanded on the Champion's backstories, even added a new dungeon and that awesome motorcycle.
The Master Cycle Zero. Yeah, that set the stage for the sequel to Tears of the Kingdom, which obviously built directly on everything Breath of the Wild started.
It really did. It feels like a game that just wasn't afraid to tear down its own traditions to build something new.
And it ended up elevating the whole genre because of it.
Okay, so let's try and summarize the key takeaways from this deep dive based on everything in the sources. First, Breath of the Wild was clearly a massive innovation in open world design.
Right, breaking away from linearity, offering just unprecedented freedom, and that systemic, physics-driven gameplay that felt so reactive.
Then there's the storytelling. Really unique, non-linear approach. You piece it together through exploring, finding those memories.
Which creates a much more personal connection to the world, the characters, the whole narrative arc. Very memorable characters, too.
Definitely. And obviously, huge success. Critically acclaimed. Sold, what, over 30 million copies?
Wow. Yeah, universal praise. It absolutely set a new standard. A real triumph of game design that influenced so many other games.
You can see its DNA everywhere now.
It's that blend, isn't it? Freedom, immersion, storytelling, all woven together in a way that just felt groundbreaking. Still does, honestly.
Yeah. It appeals to anyone who loves adventure, obviously, but also puzzles, exploration, just the joy of discovering something cool around the next corner. It really invites you, the player, to make your own path.
Okay, so here's something to chew on as we finish up. Given how much of Breath of the Wild's story, its emotional impact, its magic, it isn't handed to you in required cutscenes. You uncover it yourself through your exploration, your discoveries in that huge reactive world.
Right. It's earned.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what does that tell us about the power of player freedom in interactive stories? What kind of narratives are games uniquely able to tell when they trust the player like that?